Hi, and thank you for tuning into this very exciting video. It is with great pleasure and excitement that I introduce you to Federico. Some of you might already know him because he's done some awesome videos on his own channel, three of them in Spanish, in which he describes his experience in the cult of Nithyananda, one in English, and I think a new one where he's sharing with a group of people discussing in Spanish about the horror show that is the Nithyananda cult. But it's fun to get to know people a little bit more in depth. So Federico, hi, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me here. It's great to be here with you. I really hope whatever we talk about today can help everybody out, right?
Yeah, I think it will. I think it will because,
Yeah.
the people who have already left the Nithyananda cult, the more we speak out, the more it reinforces for them that they were right. Their suspicions are confirmed. It was
Hmm.
something negative in their life. And for the
Yeah.
people who are still trapped in that cult, I trust that one day they're going to kind of snap out of it and start looking for answers. And if they can
Mm.
find our videos, then that's kind of a nice, smooth transition for them to get right
Yeah.
back into real life.
Yes. Yes. Indeed. For example, that's what happened to me when you shared your first video about the Gurukul kids. It's like I didn't have suspicions in that specific angle of the thing, but for some reason it was like a missing piece on my misunderstanding.
Yes.
And then it became understanding, because I was after I came back from India, it was like so I was feeling so distant from Nityananda. Even though I wanted to connect with him, I was feeling like so much guilt because I wasn't able to even look at him. I was in such denial of him, and I thought it was my fault. I was doing something wrong.
Right.
And when I saw your video for the first time, I was actually that day I was about to start wearing the cantamala again. I had taken it off like maybe um, as soon as I went away from India, and I was already cleaning it, and I was about to start wearing it like it's like a dog collar. That
Yes,
thing.
exactly. No, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was just about to say, for any viewers who don't know what the Kantamala is, um, the fraud had given us each a necklace that had a little locket with his picture on it and a rudraksha seed. And he told us to wear it continuously like a choker style necklace so that he would be constantly charging our Vishuddhi chakra, our throat center. And the logic behind this is that anything we speak comes from him. But if you look at it, it's like every single person in his organization was tagged. We were wearing these dog collars to show that we were his property. And
Yeah, and sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, that uh, it's a thing. I remember this event today, which I just told you, because one fellow devotee, she's from Argentina, but she lives in Israel. She was about to go and take sannyas as well, and luckily she's aware now of the whole thing, and she told me like she was so scared of taking it out. She
Mm.
was so scared because you are told that if you don't have it, you don't have like divine protection.
Right.
So it's a fear thing going on there as well. Not only that your speech gets, I don't know, enlightened or whatever, or cleaner or whatever. It's literally like a dog collar. I mean, he's keeping you in fear. He's keeping control over you through that. He's hanging there in your throat,
Yeah.
and it's horrible
Yeah.
what people have to go through with this kind of little tricks that sum up. There's a lot of small tricks like this that
Mhm.
build up so much fear and guilt in everybody, that it's only after you wake up and you start like uh, deprogramming, as you say, that you start seeing all these little things that he, I think, consciously designs for keeping you under his spell, right?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. And, I'd love to hear more of your more of your explanations of how these affected you personally. But first, I'm curious, how did you first discover the one who calls himself Nithyananda? What drew you in?
Well, I was experimenting. I was learning about yoga, so I was curious. I was finding out about it. I thought it was like so natural. It was like really a way to enlightenment. Still, I was very like uh, young into it, so it was like a fully like a moment of complete like awe and discovery for me. I started like following Sadhguru. I enjoyed his teachings as well, and someday, because I was also seeking information about the pineal gland and the third eye, I came across one of Nityananda's videos where he spoke about the third eye, and sorry, it was it was crazy because I don't really remember what the video was about, but I fell in love with him somehow. I was like a massive amount of sympathy came out of me towards him.
Mm.
The way he spoke, whatever, I was like very charmed, uh, and I really tell you, I don't remember what was that satsang about, but I remember him. So then I got engaged with the figure more than the teachings themselves, right? And then I started watching because since he um, speaks stuff from the Vedas and Upanishads, uh, like that things that those he speaks a lot of truths, right? Doesn't mean that he is authentic, though. We all know that, but he uses that for his own benefit. There is a hidden agenda behind him, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
So through YouTube, basically, and then I started seeing, following, and then I saw one video of Sukhadananda Maharaj, this Russian boy, with another sannyasi there, and they were speaking about aushadas, and because I've been curious about psychedelic substances and those kind of ritual experiences, and I saw that two boys from my age, of my age, were living there. I found out that, oh, I can go and live there as well. I should go. I mean, I really enjoy the teachings. There is the aushadas are going on there, yoga, like morning routine, detoxification, kriyas, organic food, all these like awesome stuff that I really wanted for me, which are ideally really good for all of us, right? So I thought this was authentic, and I decided to go. I got a lot of like psychological help to make it to India, because a lot of from members, I started seeing your videos so as well, and one of the biggest things that were pushing me to go there were the powers as well, because since I was a kid, I really enjoyed that kind of magical aspect of reality, and it was it was giving me a lot of curiosity, and I follow my curiosity always. So because I saw Yoga Mata's video on YouTube, actually I saw it before knowing her guru was Nithyananda.
Wow.
I saw that video, yeah, and she spoke about her guru, but she didn't mention who it was, and I was wondering, oh, it will be so cool to have access to this knowledge, right? Because I thought it came from knowledge and good spiritual, sadhana.
Yeah.
And after that, I actually came across, you made a video, I think, while you were living there, saying that it was not like there are more powers, and there is like this whole thing is bigger than just reading through the third eye. So I got really engaged in that aspect. And in October 2018, I attended the Mahasadashivatva program, which is a program where you get introduced to the life of an ashramite, and you live there. And I took sannyas a couple of weeks after I joined in the first initiation that was done after I was there. So that was the way I arrived there. Right.
Wow. So that's a pretty quick transition from practicing yoga and seeking answers to basically through YouTube you got brought in. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And so what was the actual training, this Adinavasi training program you went to attend? What was it actually like? Maybe walk the viewers through a typical day in the life of somebody getting trained to live in the Nithyananda compound.
Well, it was nothing you could expect it to be. There was no organization at all. So I'm sorry, but it was not like it, it wasn't what I just claimed to be, right? I thought it would be like an introductory program, right? But just at that time, Mahashivaratri was going on, so we just arrived and all these celebrations happened. So we had to spend a lot of time on that, making up, decorating the temple and doing a lot of work. We, as newcomers, we were enjoying that because, of course, you think that's the greatest seva and everything. And I think the second week after Mahashivaratri, we, because Nithyananda ordained it, we had to go to the 1,000-bed dorm, right? Where the monks sleep, which are not in Gurukul, right? But we had to go to the 4th floor, which is still in construction, and we had to spend there 3 weeks. We were not supposed to leave the building for 3 weeks because allegedly Niti was doing a spiritual process in us, which he didn't explain at any moment. Now I understand what kind of process he was doing, right? Just taking your will power away, your own will away, and disconnecting you from nature. So during this 3 weeks, we started developing this crappy enlightened app he launched in the for mobile phones. And then I started seeing how disorganized everything was, how a lot of violence was there in the name of ferociousness. And I don't blame anybody who was violent on me because he's the one being violent to them. Like Nithyananda is the one being violent to everybody and speaking about ferociousness. So everything gets mixed up and you get violent people believing they are being just ferocious and they are doing some good to you.
Yeah.
So the lack of empathy I started experiencing there was really taking over me. I fell into depression. Many of us, the newcomers, did because it was nothing like we expected. I have to clarify, this guy wasn't there when we arrived. He was already on the run, and we didn't know where he was, and we were having only Zoom meetings with him. And on the first Zoom meetings, he was looking like a really nice guy, and he gave some pampering to us, and it was feeling really nice, everything. He wasn't there, but he was um, taking care of you, and he was concerned about you. So, but on the following days, just in these personal Zoom meetings groupal Zoom meetings, I just begin to see how he abuses people, how he makes them stand up, and he blasts them for just any kind of stupid thing. He blasts them and insults them and makes everybody laugh from them. and punishes them in such a like psychologically horrible way. And I couldn't understand that. Like, what is going on? What is going on? He's he's an avatar. So what's going on here? What am I getting wrong? Why am I feeling so? Why am I feeling this incoherence inside me? What's happening? What is wrong with me? You know, at that point, you think something is wrong with you when you start realizing stuff. When you're being deep inside of you, it cannot be lied to, it cannot be cheated, but it's not as accessible to us or as our rationalization and intellect is. It's not that close. So because it's not that close, we start giving, like, justifying all these behaviors. He's an avatar, he knows, he's taking your parents away, this and that. But sooner or later, I mean, you cannot bury that feeling for long.
No.
You cannot. So, well, this was the first big red flag. And I'm sorry, but this was my introductory program to being in a basi, being locked down without even being able to, like, work, go and sit under a tree or walk barefoot outside, have some sunlight. People was stealing things from each other inside there. It was so unexpected. It was very shocking in that sense, right?
Actually, Federico, you touched on a point that I haven't mentioned in any previous videos. You've reminded me about something that I found really shocking about that whole group of people who follow him, is that the vows we take when we take this kavi to become brahmacharis, we take the vow of asteya, which means non-stealing. And yet people don't realize the level of theft that went on in that place. I used to have to buy a new pair of headphones, like a new headset for...
I got two new, brand new, expensive ones stolen from me.
Yes.
And they are a big tool there, right?
Yes.
It's very
Yeah.
valuable because you have to be making calls all day and making videos and whatever.
And you're expected to watch Nithi's discourses 24/7. Some people have to transcribe them. You have to listen to his kirtan. And so if you don't have your headset, you're lost. You can't do your work.
Yeah.
You don't do your work, you get yelled at. And it's funny, people had stolen headsets out of my bag. And thumb drives, headsets, pens, pencils, paper. It's like the petty theft that would go on in an office building if that office building was occupied by thieves. And I couldn't understand it. And I remember there was a specific day when maybe my third or fourth pair of sandals went missing from outside the Raj Sabha. And I saw a Gurukul kid walking away wearing my sandals. And I was like, hey, like, those are mine. You can't steal them.
Yeah, my sandals. I got like 3 pairs of slippers also gone. I couldn't use my slippers there because they literally will get stolen 2 or 3 days after I get them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I started just walking around in bare feet because if I tried to get approval to get a new pair of slippers issued as
Good
a
luck.
sannyasi, we'd be questioned. Well, why don't you take better care of your things? Or why are you wasting Swamiji's resources? Why are you so incomplete that you keep losing these? And they don't realize that the theft there is so rampant. What a lot of people don't understand when they hear our stories is that we weren't gaining anything personally by following him. It's not like we were being paid. It's not like we were being, promoted in some industry. It's not like we left with some life skill that makes us highly employable. It's the exact opposite, actually. And the way we were abused, being forced to work 24/7, in your case, locked in the 4th floor of an unfinished dormitory building, developing an app for 3 weeks.
And actually, not only that, but he that was one project, and he gave it's like so many things to do were there. He told everybody must have at least 5 projects, must be in 5 projects, and they must report in Jira this Jira, for those who don't know, it's um, a software for organizations to track projects and and bugs and make tickets, and it's for internal communication and organization.
It's a
And
corporate.
we were supposed to report that thing like every hour of our life. It was as a mean of being more aware of what we were doing, which I understand. I mean, that's a cool activity in some point for your soul, for your consciousness, but not under, not if you have to do like so much work. It's not possible. That's the thing. So he gave little good things. Of course, it's beautiful to be part of a project, but he gave you five. Of course, it's beautiful to track your activities, but he gave you five projects. Morning routine. You were locked down in a place where it was in construction, so there was all this dust around from the construction. It was very toxic. It toxic. It was full of glasses all around. No water. We have to like go down. It was in construction, so things could fall. Literally, they could fall. There was like small dams of water. It was like, oh, not not luxurious at all in any way at all.
No. And for the people who don't understand, who haven't been there, imagine you're in an open air but fully enclosed attic of a building with drywall dust covering the floor. Your feet are full of cracks because you're constantly walking barefoot through puddles. And so, I mean, there were some people during my time, and I left about a few months before Federico got there, but the
Yeah,
conditions I think were still the same. Um,
yeah,
there were some people whose feet ballooned out to 2 or 3 times their original size because of the infections that seeped in through the cracks in their heels or in their toes due to the dryness, the constant walking through water, the open exposure. It's definitely not up to any health code. And Federico,
no.
you also mentioned that you were interested in the organic foods. So, what were the meals like during your training?
Well, for me, it was all brand new. New foods. It was a different continent, so there was because we were on Shivaratri. Like food was really good in those like first days. Then it got like more standardized, but um, more regular kind of menus and stuff. But throughout my whole instance there, I and the food was, I can say, acceptable. It was
Mhm.
nice, and we at any point we had like only white rice or anything. Luckily, we didn't have this experience. But during Paramashivoham, it was kind of hard to look at all the food and not being able. Like people will like sannyasis will like go crazy for fruits.
Yeah.
That's a fact, because everybody knows fruits are like one of the best sources of nutrients and one of the best foods. And during the Parama Shivoham program, like everybody will go and steal some fruits from somewhere, because I think we all needed it and we all wanted to taste, something that we are used to it. I mean, actually, there was actually a guy that was a fruitarian before going to
Mm.
India, and he didn't got any fruit until that program. So I can say the nutrition was sufficient, but there wasn't like any difference with just being in a regular place. I don't know if it was organic or not. I think allegedly it was.
Mm.
Um, but in that sense, and compared to other people that I know have been before that were given like you only white rice at some point,
Mhm.
luckily I didn't have that experience.
Oh, that's
I
good.
will have
Yeah.
suffered a lot of if that happened, to be honest.
Yeah. I know, like, it's a fair thing to say that during programs and during festivals, that's when the widest variety and the most nutritious food is provided, because typically that's when it's a make it or break it time for somebody establishing whether or not they want to remain within the Sangha. So if somebody comes in and immediately they're given a starvation diet of white rice and sambar, they're probably not going to last long. So it's
No.
interesting that, throughout your time there, they gave higher quality food than volunteer groups in the past had received.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's
Yeah.
for sure. I didn't have any complaint about that.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good. But it's interesting that you mentioned the fruit, because in the
Mm,
first Sadashivatwa batch, there were actually, I think, 5 or 6 people who had been fruitarians among the 200 or 300 who were joining.
mm,
And there was a special meal served just for them, not fruitarian, I should say raw foodists.
mm,
And it was really tough because they were
mm,
given salads and carrots and cucumbers and oranges and apples, and everyone else was given the high carb food,
mm,
mainly
mm.
cooked high carb food. And those people were extremely jealous. So every day we would have more and more people saying, I'm also a raw foodist, I'm also a raw foodist, because
Yeah.
they wanted what the raw people were getting. And it's a sad thing that the organization that brings in millions and millions
Yeah.
of dollars each year from the hard work of the volunteers and the
Yeah.
audience to,
That's the thing. Yes.
yeah, that they won't spend money. And fruit and vegetables are cheap in India. It's
They
not
are
like
so cheap. Everything is so cheap in India.
everything is
And
so,
there's a lot of abundance and variety of
yeah.
things. And as you say, like this is one of the things that also struck me, like so much money coming in.
Mhm.
I only raised like, I think, some thousand of dollars, like maybe 2 or 3 thousand, which
Mhm.
was a lot. I mean, I've never seen like that amount of money in my life yet, but it was a lot of money. I mean, it was really difficult for me to get like such high donations that we were requested to have, because I didn't have any experience with that not those numbers, you know. So for me it was like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't know how to handle this, you know. And seeing all the money coming in,
Mhm.
like some people had being raised, you know, were causing SJPs, you know, these VIP high donations, and seeing all the money coming in and seeing the conditions we were living in,
Mhm.
there is a big message right there for us, for whoever is living there. There's a big message. I mean, brother, are you? They are not taking care of you. They are not. They are not appreciating you for what you are, which is a human being,
Yeah,
basically. And also, if you are a spiritual seeker, that's at some point that's very valuable as well. So they are not taking proper care of you. You are giving out so much, and as we said, like thousands and thousands of dollars coming in, which for India, as we said, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
yeah,
Why don't we have like a good diet here, like fruits available and and stuff? There's What is the reason? Because what is the reason why these things are not here? What
right.
is the reason people here are not giving even the equipment to work, like, you know, headphones and computers? But you are anyways expected to give out so much, so much. It's exploitation. I don't know if that's the word in English.
It is
Exploiting.
exploitation. Yeah.
Exploitation. Okay. But it's very clear at some point. But when you are there, you are caught up in this idea that he knows, he knows better, and he's taking care, right?
Well, that's right. Because in my experience, if somebody complained that, for the third meal in a row, we're having rice and sambar, or we haven't had fresh fruits and vegetables in 2 weeks, there haven't been any beans or chickpeas or legumes, like it's a very low protein, high carb diet, even when there's a sufficient amount of food given. The variety of food is limited to predominantly carbs and starches.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
if
that's
anybody
true.
mentioned that, we would immediately be told it's your incompletion with food. You have this false belief instilled in you by the corrupt Western civilization that you need protein, you need variety. Why don't you trust Swamiji? Drop it at his feet. He knows better. So, if somebody is sick and asking for help, instead of being helped, they're blamed and told that they need to deepen their trust connection with Nidhi. And that's literally brainwashing, and that's a group
Yeah,
dynamic
yeah,
enforcing the cult mentality or the group think
yeah.
mentality. So Federico, at the time that you were actually going through this, did any of it strike you as a red flag? I know you mentioned kind of pushing aside your doubts and trying harder to surrender to him. What were the things that struck you as not resonant with his message?
Well, as I said previously, his violence for his disciples, we the awful conditions of living there, all the dirt and lice and bed bugs. I had friends that were got really sick because of bed bugs, but like heavily sick, and feeling helpless at time. The lack of empathy and communication of humanity, the lack of humanity, not being able to. For me, it was, even though I had taken brahmacharya, for me not being able to speak with women. I really resonate with women for some reason. I love speaking and sharing because there is a different emotional component that I really enjoy. So we were like forbidden to speak with females, which is I think it's a great practice, but because we had to live with next to them, and we had to work with them, it was so hard. It was so hard. I don't have any problem of being isolated somewhere, and yeah, I won't speak, no problem. But if I have to work with you, and I'm being told I cannot speak with you, like it was like taking me, in many directions that I didn't understand. It was like a boat moving. I don't know what's the word for that, but oscillating in that way.
Yeah.
And that lack, basically the lack of compassion there. It was what I was suffered the most. I wouldn't recognize it at that time because, as we know, we are all in the spell. But that was one of the biggest red flags. And well, something I mentioned in one of the videos was in one of the meetings, he started talking about buying small cities in United States mostly, and some in Canada. It seems like towns are sold there, and you buy them, and you are the major, and you rule over the place. And he was pushing a lot of projects out that it seemed like so much, and nothing was coming into life. It was like all pure words, and people were sold a lot of dreams, like he will make like a university in Los Angeles or somewhere, and people were signing up to go and live there, be ashramites, but in the United States, which was relatively easier for them. And a lot of people was already like uh, ready to go with their families and everything, and nothing was happening. And these people called us asking what how is it going, when going. And you don't know because all he does is just telling you, oh, we are going to make this, call people for this, and that's all. That's all. It's that shallow. It's that shallow. So when he started saying about buying these small cities and establishing these kailasas around the world, he also mentioned buying Rolls Royce, and that was so stupid. Like I knew Osho did that kind of stuff. I didn't know too much about Osho, but I knew that, and that didn't feel well inside. It was like what's the need for that? What's the need for that? It
Yeah.
was uh, in that way, and and after that, one of the last sessions I witnessed that this. Oh, okay. So another thing, we started. It's not coming back. Um, I think there are so many things to share, that they slowly pop up in your memory.
Yeah.
And at some point, we were forced to chant a hymn. A hymn. That's the word. Hymn for him. Um, which was basically, there's a part of the puja, of the Guru puja, which he gives, that it's all about his achievements and what he is and his titles and whatever. So this hymn, I don't know, sorry if I'm spelling the word right, but it's like a chanting, like your
Yeah,
national hymn. I don't know the word.
it's the same word in English. Yeah, hymn. It's typically a church song or a song of.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, you're right.
yeah, that okay, hymn. So right, um, and it was this section from the chanting from the puja.
Mm,
So this hymn was all about him and his achievements, and we had to chant it every time we had an internal meeting now.
mm,
And it was like, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes long in Sanskrit.
yeah.
And at some point he started behaving like so childish.
Mm,
Really, it was, sorry, but he was behaving like so stupid because
yeah.
he was behaving like a child. At some point, for some reason, he got angry with some people, and he was saying that we were not enough and we were not doing what he expected, and that he made you feel guilty. And even when we were chanting the hymn, he will not look at us. I mean, the camera will be, the screen will be showing him, but he will be looking like this, like
Mm,
literally turning his face other to his, he has another computer.
yeah.
So he will be like just doing, I don't know, maybe sexting somebody through his computer while we were chanting a hymn for him.
Mhm.
And we were all devoted there and giving out all of, like, many of my brothers were crying because they couldn't hold it, they couldn't, we were all suffering, but we didn't know what was going on. We all thought it was, part of our growth, and we had to endure that.
Mhm.
And this guy, when we were chanting to him, he will look to his screen, I don't know, browse the internet or something, and go meetings and meetings and meetings. I mean, for days or weeks, he stood up in that position of ignoring you. Like when somebody really wants to draw your attention, they ignore you, like
Yes.
that kind of childish behavior.
Yeah.
Um, and in one of the uh, sessions I attended before I left India. Well, I already mentioned this in one of the videos, but he started speaking about magic and some sort of alchemy, and he had a tantric book. I don't remember the name. If I read the name somewhere, I will recognize it.
Mm.
But he he was speaking about teaching us how to make some kind of magic or spells, like to create fire out of nothing, or break rocks out of thin air just with sound, which sounded pretty interesting, and I have a special taste for that. And he will teach us like some sort of chemistry, so we can make medicines and like other different aushadas, which
Mm.
I like all that stuff. So it was sounding great. And at some point he mentioned that he was also learning some magic to kill other people, and he was being successful doing it, and he was feeling like so excited about all of this. He was like a happy child wanting to share something with everybody else.
Mm.
And he told he was being successful and he was using it to these abusers, and he justified it in, he gave some really rotten logic about, like, in form of justification for that kind of actions or behavior, which I don't remember what he said to justify. But of course that some, if Shiva kills, it's okay, something like that. And at the moment, it was, you don't question it,
No.
but it's not okay. It's
No.
not okay, and it's a massive incongruity on his discourse.
Mhm.
He's supposed, I mean, as he claims, he's supposed to be an avatar full of compassion and all these good qualities.
Mm-hmm.
And he was killing people like through magic. Like it was, now that I see it, it was such a like cheap way of dealing with things. I don't know if it was truth, he was successful or not. That's what he told. But now that I see it, it's such a cheap way of dealing with people you don't like, or people that is not doing something you like, and it's not enlightened behavior at all, at all.
No.
And I hope more people come out from my batch and reinforce what I'm saying, because I mean, some people were not believing it or whatever, but there was like hundreds of us there, so it's I'm not making it up at all.
No, I believe you completely, because I remember even one of the very first meetings I had with him in the green room behind the Raja Sabha when I was still new as a brahmacharini. There were just a handful of us present, including Nithyananda, who left the organization and nobody has heard from him. He hasn't spoken out, but he's gone. And Ranjita, the actress he had the sex tape with, she was like his right hand. She was always with him throughout my entire time in that organization. But he was talking about the past abusers and their legal team and some of the police officers who had been involved in the case. And apparently one judge who was unfavorable towards him, who was leaning with those who were blowing the whistle on his cult. And he bragged to all of us that that judge had died mysteriously while in office, and that because of that, his case kept getting delayed because other judges were scared to take it. And he actually bragged to all of us that this was his Shakti, his divine superpower, that he made that judge die.
What a
And
cycle.
totally, it's a total psychopathic way and total narcissistic way of justifying his ill actions. And sadly, we don't know what actually happened to that judge. It's quite possible that the man was terminally ill before he took the case. Who knows?
Anything will have happened,
Yeah,
but
anything.
he takes advantage of that to make himself look as powerful.
Exactly. And, I think it's worth pointing out that the fear tactic that he uses on people, the Kantamala you mentioned at the beginning of the interview, he told all of us that as long as we're wearing that Kantamala, no harm will come to us. But the moment we take it off, it's like all hell is going to break loose. He makes it
Yeah.
seem as if all the accidents that you avoided while wearing his mala will suddenly strike you down if you ever dare to take it off. But it's interesting because this kind of proves that he's a fraud, because, for example, all the people in his organization who are falsely accusing others of rape in order to silence them from speaking out against the cult, they were all wearing their kantamalas at the time when they were allegedly attacked. It's a false accusation, but it's like, okay, even if it had been true, why didn't the kantamala protect them from this? And so he creates these illogical, it's like he paints himself into a corner. Okay, if your third eye is open and you're an all compassionate incarnation of Sadashiva, then why would you allow somebody who in the future is going to expose you for all of your fraud and all of your sexual exploits? Why would you promote that person to be the head of your social media team? Infinite wisdom, why would you put somebody who's about to become a whistleblower in a position where they have access to insider information? And if you're ahimsa and compassionate, why do you yell at people and reduce them to to believing themselves to be worthless just because they don't raise more money for you? If you're really a sannyasi, if you really practice aparigraha, living with a minimum of possessions, why do you need so many properties? Why are you telling them to buy a town? Why are you telling them to buy Rolls Royces? I think he probably watched Wild Wild Country and got jealous of Osho, because Osho was better at the game of acquiring wealth than he was. But it's really pathetic, Federico, and thank you for sharing that he bragged about being able to kill people through black magic. I think that alone is proof positive that he's not actually a divine incarnation. He's just somebody who's intrigued and enamored by black magic, and he wants to harness power for himself. Um, you know, a lot of people exposing him, some call him Poops, some call him Poopy. Our friend Steven had started to call him Jafar, because really what he's doing is like the Jafar character in the Aladdin movie.
Yes,
He holds
yes.
the same damn stick. He's got his silver stick with the snake skin on it, and it hypnotizes people. That's exactly what he's doing.
It's too good to be true.
Yeah. So how are you feeling now after leaving? Like I understand which red flags you saw. I totally get the process of how you got sucked in.
Mm, mm.
Looking back on that experience, maybe what would you say to somebody else if they're on the fence and they're thinking maybe it's worth it, maybe life is better as his follower?
If they're on the fence, I think there are many things I can say, but mostly try to find yourself in silence or and get in touch with nature,
Mm.
and try to learn from nature also, and be try to be still and hear yourself, because of course research basically research and be open to all the spectrum of information. If you are a seeker, if you are not, if you're, there is a difference between being a seeker and being a fan of
Mm.
somebody. Okay, so don't be a fan, because that won't lead you anywhere, at least spiritually. Be a seeker and absorb the whole spectrum, or be open to the whole spectrum of information, because um, only by being open to all the information you will be able to discern. You know, you have an internal ability of knowing what is true, what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. Some things are aligned to what you're looking for, to who you are. Some things are not. So educate yourself in some aspect, you know, and you can even educate yourself in Sanatana Dharma, which is beautiful and has a lot of truths and a lot of moral principles that you can follow.
Mm.
And you can follow that because, okay, so if he is an avatar and he is allegedly like the materialization or incarnation of all the Vedas and all the knowledge in condensed in those scriptures, then you can go like the scriptures are as valuable as his teachings, right? It's supposed to be like that. So go to the scriptures if you want, or to simple basic yamas and niyamas, which are the, like, I think the beginning place for everybody who steps into yoga, and then see if the actions are coherent with, I mean, the actions of Niti are coherent with what is being told in these scriptures.
Mm.
So I told you yesterday what in the chat that he really uh, he, he he must be really scared right now,
Mm.
Niti, because when he came out with this story about not least for it's an analogy for not listening to abusers. Okay, so he told people that nobody should hear abusers, because if you let a small drop of poison fall into the pot of milk, the whole thing gets spoiled. Like if you listen to one of us or somebody telling something different than what he preaches, your whole spirituality will get screwed up.
Mm.
So it's another fear tactic to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
So basically, that's what I would tell. Like, try to connect with nature. When you are in the Adinam, you are not in touch with nature at all. I mean, the closer you are, the closest you can get is just being close to a cow or something and feel them. That's very beautiful. But forget about going walking on a forest or some lake, or forget about it. You'll be doing work, and just a more hardcore test you can do is go and live there.
Yeah.
Go and live there, and go. That's, I invite you to go, and you will feel it. All that we are telling you, you'll feel it by yourself, and you'll get depressed there,
Yeah.
and you'll see how your free will is taken away.
Yes.
So I don't want anybody to go, to be honest.
No. I was
That's
just
the
about to say, this is not an advertisement to go on the tent.
no, but that's the ultimate challenge I can give to anybody.
You know what, Federico, I don't want to interrupt your storyline here, but I do.
It's okay. It's okay. Go on.
That the majority of people who are his closest defenders now, who are constantly standing up for him, are people who had only ever followed him online and in local centers around the world, and who maybe attend one of the luxury retreats, one of the $15,000 programs.
That's very true.
And anybody who has actually lived in his compound knows, you know, there's a barbed wire fence running around the entire perimeter. There's armed guards at the gate. You're not allowed to leave unless you have approval. These JIRA reports are they are the most restrictive trap that can be put on a person, because what Federico was describing, that was first introduced in the last few months that I was there before I left. But we had to log into this software called JIRA, which is a corporate surveillance tool, track of employee efficiency. And every 30 minutes, when I was there, it was every half hour, we had to create a JIRA ticket updating JIRA. I keep pronouncing it with the Indian accent. It's kind of a hard pattern to break. But we had to create a ticket in JIRA tagging the person we report to about where we were, who we were with, who we had spoken to, and what we had done, what was our goal for that half hour, whether or not we had achieved it, how much money we had raised, how many people we had brought to the next program, YouTube videos we had published that day, how many times we shared Nithyananda's Facebook status update. We were driven like slaves. A person might go there as a seeker, thinking that they're going to connect with their inner being and be harmonious with nature. It's the exact opposite of that. If you're trying to escape the world of the corporate toil, if you're trying to get out of the rat race, strap on your seatbelt, because if you go to that, it's going to be the most corporate, restrictive, sales-driven, goal-oriented, slave-driven workspace you've ever imagined. And you know, you're given maximum 2 hours of sleep a night. People, I mean, I'm a very energetic person by nature. I sleep maybe 7 hours a night. I wake up, I put on some like classic rock music and dance while I make my breakfast. I'm a really motivated, excited person by nature. But there, people actually thought that I had narcolepsy because I wasn't getting any sleep at night. I'd be at my laptop working and randomly.
Everybody was like that. Everybody was like that at some point. Actually, everybody was falling asleep in satsangs, you know. And the crazy thing is that because there were integrity officers, which took. I think you're one of them, as you mentioned.
First, me and
you were in charge of keeping the space, you know, keeping the corporate thing alive. So when people began to sleep or anything, you should like wake them up or stuff like that. And at some point when I was there, like almost everybody was falling asleep. Everybody was falling asleep.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy.
Really, it's
crazy. And actually we had to do security at night as well, at least the male bodies, as they call them, which is male people. We're supposed to do security because they weren't paying the security company for some reason, and we had to go and guard the whole campus, even all the way up to sacred arts and stuff. They had spotted a tiger or something one of previous day, and we had to go there at night and take care of the space. So it was very challenging at times, especially because you will go there when you finish all the corporate work, you know, the closing calls and raising fundraising stuff, and we will finish that at 11 or 12 p.m. And then we had to go to do security, and at 3 a.m. we had to come back to take a bath and go start the morning routine. The day starts again. You do the yoga, you do the puja, everything.
So there's absolutely no time allotted for sleeping. And yet, if you start nodding off, there are people there ready to yell at you, to poke you, to wake you up, to call you incomplete. And the biggest mind F that went on is that we were told we are manifesting the power of Kuta Kesha, going beyond sleep. And this is why
Oh man.
people tonight, like a lot of my viewers have called me up and said, okay, you used to say it's not a cult. And you used to say you're not sleep deprived. Why? And it's because we're given all kinds of illogical, irrational, but highly believable, if you trust the person telling you,
Yeah.
justifications for why we don't sleep. And what we were told is that the need for sleep is a myth, and that in actuality, we're manifesting the ability to become superhumans, and superhumans don't function on the same things that drive human beings.
Yeah.
So we don't need sleep. We don't need food. We don't need compassion. We don't need the luxury of sanitation. We don't need soap. We can just go beyond all of these luxury things. And so what resulted were a bunch of people who fell asleep like zombies, who were getting sick all the time because they're breathing in this dust from unfinished construction sites. They're eating off of plates that haven't been sanitized. There's no soap to wash their hands. It's a cesspool of germs.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of people, when they left the Odinum and went back to their home countries, or even people within India, when they went back to their family homes, for about a month, they had terrible coughs and runny noses and colds, and it took them a while to heal. In my case, my voice was scratchy for at least 3 months after I came back again because the constant coughing. I even, you know, pulled a muscle in my ribs coughing because I had a constant nagging hack as long as I was in that place. So, I mean, thank you for touching on all these topics. It's important that, you know, we get so diverted by the fact that he's a fugitive, absconding from the law, running away without a legal passport, escaping a rape trial, that he was a lascivious predator going after males and females, and that he's a racketeer, constantly making money. But another angle that people need to really understand is that it is abuse to bring people in under the false assumption that they're going to become spiritually awakened, and then just exploit them through forced labor in, you know, conditions that wouldn't meet any of the World Health Organization's criteria for safety. And it's really sad that, you know, a lot of people who are still being victimized by that cult will justify. And if they do feel bad about their lack of sleep, about their low protein diets, about the fact that they're being driven to work like slaves, when this apat sannyas was first introduced, now Nidhi is trying to tighten his hold on his
Yes,
devotees
yes,
around the world. So
yes.
he introduced this new order called apat sannyas, which is the form of sannyas, the form of spiritual renunciation a person takes under an emergency situation before their death, so that they're granted liberation. He has now said that it's a critical time. Everyone who follows him needs to take this apat sannyas, and that they can do it from home, just wear the orange robes when they feel like it. It's a complete ridicule of the traditional Vedic system. He's the anti-Hindu, telling people you can still go to work, you can still be married, you can still have your family, you can still have your house, you can still have your stuff, and be a sannyasi as long as you're surrendered to him. I heard that he actually told his disciples, his current sannyasi, that if they don't recruit more people into apat sannyas, they are worthless. And this is the kind of psychological torture they go through. So these poor people are being abused, defending their abuser because they believe that they are worthless and they need him to validate and justify their lives. It's sad.
I resist to to imagine what it is to live there right now at this point of time. I honestly, I don't engage in that kind of thoughts because I get sad,
Yeah.
and but because of the people that is there, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what are they going through, and what kind of lies, all the lies that they are being told,
Yeah.
and all the potential being exploited out of them, which they can. It's not that you need to be away from society to have a spiritual life. That's one of the biggest lies that surround the world of yoga and spirituality. It's about it's about merging the two worlds together. You can be at home and have the greatest experiences and unfolding of truths inside of you,
Yeah.
and you don't need to give away your free will to
No.
anybody. There's plenty of old scriptures that you can trust, and you can be at home learning, evolving, and you don't need to go and literally surrender yourself in the especially to these men. I think there are more like this, more guys like this. So I don't think that with there are many things good with internet, but some people exploit these great tools for their own benefit. So be independent. That's one of the best advice I can give. I mean, talk to people and share, but at this point don't follow any, not, you don't need to follow. At the most, you can listen to somebody, you can hear them, if they have something to tell you, great, but nobody can tell you what to do. Nobody should tell you what to do and force you. They can tell you, but they cannot force you. It's up to you if you like move forward with that or not, but nobody can force you. It's so sad. I mean, it's so sad. Like all the kids there, they don't know a life outside of this thing. What,
Mm.
how do they feel? I am feeling so free right now for being out, and overall for being aware of this whole trap that we fell in, which
Mm.
is a great step on our evolution. I see it that way. Um, I feel so free, so I can dream for myself, envision, and follow the path like that I want. There are not many paths. There is only one path, and it's the one you create for yourself.
Mm.
And we have that awesome possibility and gift of being creative and being able to dream and to work towards that dream. And we don't need anybody to tell us how to live. It's up to each individual to discover what's good for them. What do we want? The basic thing we should carry is just a pure heart and humanity, and
Mm.
not telling lies. I mean, the yamas and yamas are a great place to start.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a fantastic, absolutely fantastic framework to build your life around, because that's I think that essentially, and that's why they are the two first, one of two, I think that they are the two first limbs of yoga.
Mm.
And it's the most basic things that opens you up for the greatest experience that existence has for you. And yeah, I'm so sad about the kids. It really hits me. That thing, it really hits me. They are great kids,
Yeah.
and the
Absolutely.
ones in the Gurukul, great kids. um it's very sad, and what this guy is doing to them. I mean, seeing that thing is what makes me, it it relieves a little bit of anger in me,
Mhm.
because it's, I'm sorry for the word, but it's fucked up.
Yeah,
it's
no, you don't have to be
it's
sorry. It is fucked up. And the worst thing is that those of us who went in as adults, like 18 or over at the time that we found him, we do have a level of normalcy in our lives before him that we can fall back on and remember,
Yeah,
I used
exactly.
to have self-sovereignty. I used to decide my own day. I used to have my own plans and my own
Yes.
ambition. But for the kids who went in and were enrolled in Gurukul by their parents, who were told that this is the best thing for their lives and that he's their guru and that he's their god, they don't have any normal state to fall back on. You know, it's everything that they've ever known, or they at least they believe that it's the culmination of everything they know. So I mean, just this past week, Nithyanandita and Tatvapriya, two of the girls who were there, you know, from their childhood in the Gurukul, I remember I knew these two girls personally while I was there, and they used to sing the praises of their parents. They loved their parents. Their father had chanted the, I think it was called the Devi Rahasyam, while his wife was pregnant with them. They are worshippers of Shri Vidya, so they did the Shri Vidya process, which means worships of the goddess. And they gave these girls names of the goddess Devi from birth, because they loved their kids so much that they wanted them to have every advantage in life, including spiritual, including compassion and the maternal qualities that go along with compassion and love. Now these same girls who used to talk about how lucky and how blessed they were to have such wonderful parents have turned against their own parents and made these frightening Blair Witch Project looking videos where they're holding their cell phones under their nose like this, saying, I'm terrified, I'm scared now, saying that their own parents were trying to use the police to get them out of that cult, but skewing the story in a way to make it sound like they're trying to kidnap them out of it. And I think this shows the level of brainwashing that goes on in that school. And it shows that these kids totally have Stockholm syndrome. They've identified with their abusers. They don't even realize, you know, being locked indoors for 3 weeks straight, not allowed to go outside and connect with nature, not allowed to eat fruits, and not allowed to communicate with people as people, but to be corporately driven by some man's greed because he saw Osho had Rolls Royces. Well, damn it, now he wants Rolls Royces too. Osho had the town of Antelope. Well, damn it, buy him a town too. He wants everything that anybody else has. Because of his greed, families are being torn apart and kids' lives are being ruined. And Federico, I think the best thing that you've mentioned here is that there's a difference between being a sincere seeker and a fan. You know, everyone who got caught into that cult started as a sincere seeker. You know, they were lured in because they want enlightenment. They want to do good for the world. They want to be compassionate. They want to be a blessing to existence rather than a drain on existence. And yet that sincere seeking was corrupted and abused and twisted into a personality cult. A cult where, like you said, before every meeting, you have to spend 5 minutes chanting the praises of this man who is ignoring you, looking at his other computer, acting disinterested, and really psychologically torturing the people who are praising him. Like, imagine if you go to a concert and there's a band on stage and you're cheering their name and they're all looking like this.
No. It was awful. It is awful. If I mean, anybody can just imagine this. If they have a couple and they ignore you, and you know how you feel at that point, right? You don't feel okay at all. You think you're doing something wrong, and that's what the other part is trying to communicate to you actually. And I understand that in people, right? Because it's some sort of resource for some people, but from an avatar, come on.
Yeah, like you said, it's behavior. Your wife might give you the silent treatment if she's pissed because you didn't do the dishes, but you don't expect that from your guru.
No. And he's telling you, read the Guru Gita, like he's trying to. It's like he tries to. It's amazing how he exploits the scriptures for himself, and he's so irresponsible in doing so. He sends you to read the Guru Gita, expecting of course that because the Guru Gita it's a scripture where like the qualities of the Guru are described, how he is, how he behaves, all his grace, and he expects you to read this and associate all of those understandings to him.
Well,
instead of him acting them out.
yes. You know what's funny, Federico? I read the Guru Gita, and
Mm,
one of the verses that constantly resonates in my mind is that there are numerous gurus who will steal the wealth of their disciples, but rare is the guru who will bring all of his disciples into bliss.
mm.
And Niti is the exact description of one of the many, many fake gurus who steal the wealth of their disciples. And he is not one of those rare divine beings who leads his disciples into bliss, because he himself has stated in meetings where we had 300 Adinavasis present, he's looked at us with a face of disgust, like, ugh, all of you are in depression. So if every single person gave up their lives, their careers, their families, their homes, and moved there to live with him, literally stayed at his feet, I'm talking in the days when he was physically present in the Adinam, if he was in fact the rare guru who leads his devotees into bliss, he wouldn't be barking at all of us complaining that we're all depressed. He puts people into depression. He takes what he has, he takes what they have, and then makes them feel like pieces of shit for not giving him more. And that's abuse. He talks all the
So
time
much.
about droha. None of us here are committing droha. We are sharing our experience. We're speaking the truth. We're giving facts. We're remembering what happened through the clarity of hindsight, and we're sharing it with other people. That's not abuse. If
No.
somebody's actions are so deplorable that having their own actions revealed to others is considered abusive, then consider the action of that abusive person. You know, Federico, like after this interview, if you go on Facebook and send a message like, you know, Sarah talked more than I did, and this was supposed to be an interview, how annoying. I couldn't say you're abusing me. I could only say like, oh, I'm sorry that you felt that way. I didn't mean to, you know, take over the whole talk.
We are allowed to have different points of view.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm trying to say here. He is committing Shela Droha. He is abusing his disciples
Yeah.
and instilling in them this fear that if they speak their truth, if they share their opinion, which is different from his opinion, if they take off the dog collar with his picture on it, then he calls them abusive. That is driving people through fear, through domination. He's not leading anybody into enlightened realization. He is
No, and that's one of the things I asked in the group in a funny way, and I asked everybody, even if you are listening to this and you are, I don't think you're listening to this if you're a disciple, really, I don't think, but everybody, how many enlightened disciples of Nithyananda are out there? That's the question I have, and I can tell you my answer, and my answer is zero, absolutely zero, because you cannot be enlightened under his teachings.
No.
It's impossible. They go different ways, completely different ways. So there is no evidence, like tangible evidence of his success as a guru. There's
Another
not.
question is, why did so many people leave him who were very, very close to him? Why did the first Mamanisha, who was his main Mahayogacharya, leave? Why did the second Mamanisha, who scripted out inner awakening based on her experience with Landmark, why did she leave? Where's Jnana Swarupa Swami, who was the head of causing for Sarvagnyamrita? Why did I leave? Why did Meda Maharaj leave? Why did so many people who were very close insiders leave? And where are the people who disappeared? Where is Gopika Swami, the first Gopika Swami, who disappeared without a trace after Aarti Rao filed the rape case? To this day, nobody knows where she is. Why did a young girl, 24 years old, die under mysterious causes in the Adinam when she had previously been in perfect health? And to this day, her autopsy report has not been released to her own mother because the Adinam quashed the case. What happened to these people? I really want to know what happened to the missing people.
Yeah. There are two things I would like to share that were mentioned in the video in Spanish that we made some days ago with some former members of the Sangha, which I'm working on the subtitles, so they will be up soon, hopefully. It's taking a little bit of work, but everybody will be able to understand what is told there. Anyways, I want to mention some of the points that were mentioned there. One of the ex-devotees, which worked like for 6 years doing translations to him and attended like 4 inner awakenings, which is a lot of money. She mentioned like the origin, and this is very interesting. She mentioned the origin of the third eye, of the all of the third eye show that Nithyananda started like showing up, right? One woman from Monterrey, Mexico, after she finished the program Inner Awakening, which was in Varanasi at that time, I think it was 2013 or 14. She went after the program finished from Varanasi. She went to Bengaluru and was located in the Gurukul to helping Gurukul, right? So she will take care of the kids, and I don't know what kind of duties she had, but she had learned a meditation in her hometown in Monterrey, Mexico, which a master had taught her, which allows you to see blindfold. And she taught these meditations to the Gurukul kids. And some months after, Nithyananda came out with all this third eye, that he had awakened the third eye of his kids and everything, and he sent these women to this Mexican master, trying to bring him to India.
Oh.
Luckily, this man who has an organization in Mexico declined and didn't go there. But this is one of the another one inauthenticity of this guy.
Oh, so even that was stolen. Shit.
Sorry?
Even that was stolen.
Yeah. Even that was stolen. It doesn't come from there, and then he backs it up with a lot of scriptural reference. And of course, people don't question that. You trust, everybody trusts him, and you trust the scriptures, but he's really fake. And a thing also that Anna Arechika mentioned, there was that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the book of stories of Krishna, it's mentioned at some point that this Ashuta Dhamma or Ashura Dhamma, I don't remember the Sanskrit name perfectly, but there is a crime that not even Krishna can forgive, which is faking to be a Brahmin, or being a Brahmin and taking advantage of the people. And Krishna, which is one of the most compassionate, is the most compassionate being as per these scriptures. That's the crime he cannot forgive. He cannot do anything about it, which is what Nithyananda is doing. So as per scriptural reference in the actual scriptures of Sanatana Dharma, what Nithyananda is doing is the most uttermost adharmic thing. It's mentioned there, and nobody can forgive him. Nobody, because it's literally, it's like consciousness going against consciousness. It's completely, he's going in the complete opposite direction. I think we have a great example here of he's a great case study, I think, for psychologists and people in the medical field, and even seekers, like this is not the way to go at all. This is the way you should never walk through. And if you were to be scared of something, is to become like him, which is the worst. Actually, some weeks ago, I realized he's a demon. I mean, I have never, after your videos and starting to realize the truth and what he did to me and what he did to all of us, a word just popped up, and it was demon. I cannot think of a more demonic behavior than this.
Right.
Literally raping you spiritually, taking your will away. I could feel in this, like, this last month, how I feel like something was coming out of me, but like something was unsticking from me, like if like if some kind of weird, strange influence was sitting in me, and not allowing me to be myself, to be authentic, to be myself, to be free. I felt how this kind of energy started going away, and all my freedom and my feeling of my sense of self came back to life.
Wow.
And how can you create that in another being if you are not a demon? It's impossible.
Right. And like I said, that's why Stephen calls him Jafar, because he's like this
Yeah.
magician who hypnotizes people and basically possesses them, puts them under his will. And I think it's also worth mentioning that the worst is brought out of people when they're with him. Like I'm Canadian, right? So I've been polite to a fault. I'm one of those people. Um, you know, I was going for a walk once with my mom, and she kind of bumped into a plant, and she said, "Oh, excuse me." And we're that kind of Canadians, where like we'll apologize to a tree if we accidentally bump into it. And I remember being really badly struck by how rude everyone is to each other in the Adinam. And back in 2015, when I was still a new Adinavasi, new to that order, there was a meeting where people were just barking at each other, yelling at each other, calling each other dirty names, being rude. It was my first experience of one of these blasting sessions, as they call it. And I was sitting there feeling like horrified and kind of sinking back into my seat and hoping that it doesn't get turned on me and hoping that I never turn into that. When, you know, Shitty Nitty himself turned from his throne and looked at me and said, Swarupa Priya, don't you realize niceness is stupid? And I can say that was like the moment that I lost my connection to friendliness and to niceness, because here's this man who I believe is God himself incarnate, this Purnavatar, an incarnation of all divinity. And
Yeah.
he's telling me that it's stupid to be nice.
What the hell?
Ferociousness is divine. He convinces us that up is down and down is up. You know, being ferocious is good for people. Being nice just soothes their patterns. Well, everything he did was self-serving. You know, he claims that we have a laziness pattern that needs to be broken. It can only be broken by working for him tirelessly. You know, we have this dependence on food that should be broken so that he can save money by not feeding us. We have this dependence on sleep that needs to be broken so that he can keep us sleep deprived and compliant to his will. It's all just ass backwards. And you know, in another recent discourse, he claimed that heaven is the state of feeling blessed by everything, and hell is the state of feeling ripped off and abused. And he claims that he puts people in heaven by reminding them again and again and again that everything is auspicious and everything is a blessing. And that the so-called abusers, which means people like me and like you and like those who were falsely accused of drug smuggling, he claims that that group of people take people into hell, which is the state of feeling abused and ripped off. I just want to point out here, I do feel blessed by existence. Existence has blessed us infinitely to get us out of that cult.
Yeah.
I don't feel at all that I'm in a space right now of feeling bad or feeling sorry for myself. I just want other people to have the same joy of freedom in their existence.
Yeah.
And it's this kind of double speak that he uses that keeps people trapped.
Yes, yes, indeed. Because I have to say, I have to admit, I learned a lot of cool stuff from him. I learned a lot of cool stuff that was really useful. But it's all from the scriptures, and he doesn't walk his talk at all. He gives you this. He has a big makeup. He has two faces, the public and the private one, and he preaches integrity. And that's the only thing he does not have, which
Yeah.
encompasses everything else, everything else. And as you mentioned, one of my first red flag, it wasn't a red flag because at that point I had arrived one day before. So the first night I arrived there, I was so happy that I made it. I'm in paradise now.
Mm.
Blah blah blah. I was ecstatic, and I went at 4 a.m. because one of the things I wanted the most was being part of the morning routine, which was extremely like interesting to me, and I know it will be really helpful. So I went to the Galleria, which is the place where the boys make yoga, and nobody was there. So I didn't understand. Is it maybe it's in another hall or something? Maybe I'm lost because I didn't know the place too well. So I headed to the Raja Sabha,
Mm.
and this sannyasi Malin, which is now she's Chinese, she now is called Makai Lhasa.
Mm.
She um she came out. She saw me at the door, like I was trying to figure out if the yoga was happening here, and she came out and she blasted me like a like a dog because I was like interfering in their brahmacharya or something. But
Mm.
she was so violent to me. That was my first, as you said,
Mhm.
distanciation from friendliness that I experienced there. Plus the fact that nobody was doing yoga, and they made you believe that everybody was doing yoga every day, and there's this cool lifestyle going on, like everybody. If I Whoever has gone there knows that whatever is shown to the outside, it's almost the complete opposite of what's going on inside. It's not a blissful place. It's full of work. People is people is lazy because people is tired,
Yes.
and malnourished, and there is a lot of violence, and I feel really cheated at that point. And at some point, when I had to invite more people to come to live, and I had to make this, cute face that everything, this is the, blissful place, come here, ultimate lifestyle, whatever. I couldn't do it, actually. I couldn't invite anybody because I knew I was lying,
Mm.
and that even I don't wanted to live there.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I think that's ultimately what it all comes down to is that
Mm,
the same way he has his public face and his private face, he makes his disciples have a public face and a private face.
yes.
Privately, they're sleep deprived, malnourished, exhausted. They can barely wake up for his discourses. But on camera, we had to pretend that we were blissful, manifesting powers, grateful to be in his presence, and that we were superhumans. He stripped us of our humanity in the name of being a superhuman and
Mm,
took away the compassion. And like I said, the worst of all of us came out from being around him, and it makes perfect sense scripturally. The scriptures show the student becomes their guru. Whoever you follow
yeah.
as guru, that's who you're becoming. So if you're
Mm,
following a cheat, a con artist, a rapist, a glutton who is constantly greedy for more, 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 who's willing to lie to everyone to get it, who is bragging about killing people through black magic, and who's cursing his enemies, that's what you'll become. And sadly, if you look at the Blissful Athlete channel, that's what Jordan is becoming.
yeah.
Jordan Kremer, whose name
Yeah.
from Nithyananda is Nithyananda, he's not a bad guy. He's a good guy.
No,
But
he's a good guy.
the worst of him is
A very
coming
good guy.
out. He's
Yeah.
deep down inside, underneath all the Drida bullshit, he's a really good guy. But
Yeah, he is.
worst possibility for him is coming out because of Nithyananda, the one who calls himself Nithyananda. And all of these people, I'm a nice girl. I love people. I'm friendly. I'm happy. But I used to go on camera and ridicule other gurus because Niti told me to. I used to insult people because Niti told me to. I used to curse people because Niti told me to. Of course, I apologize and take that all back now. But I think it should be pointed out that it's really true. Who you worship, that's who you become.
Yes.
Before anybody worships a guru, instead they should look in and question, what do they want to become? And worship the highest possibility within themselves instead of
Yeah.
externally projecting it onto somebody else.
Yeah. It's a projection completely. It's a complete projection.
Yeah. And the moment you think somebody else is responsible for your spiritual breakthrough, you're going to be disappointed, because as long
Yeah.
as a person is in a human body that is afraid of going to prison, that requires money, that requires anything, as long as a human being is still human, which means alive, living, breathing, walking, talking. I don't care who calls themselves an avatar, who calls themselves a guru. If it looks like a human, it's a human. And that person is flawed. And that person, if you think that they are perfect, you will be disappointed. And so it's better to, like you said, Federico, it's better to look within yourself, connect with nature, connect with, if you want to be Hindu, connect with the Vedas and the Agamas and the Upanishad and the Guru Gita and the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. Go to the original source scriptures and find the truth, because you will find it if you look within yourself. But nobody else can give it to you. As long as somebody else tells you you have to do something, do A to achieve B, they are trying to exploit you.
Yeah, completely. And I would like to share from my own like spiritual experiences, and I learned this from the Gita and from my experience, is that if you don't walk the middle path, if you don't have a balanced life, you won't get there.
Right.
Because what I truly believe that enlightenment is a state of like complete balance of everything, and who knows what else, but balance must be there as is like a core, of the experience.
Yeah.
And there is nothing wrong on sleeping, there is nothing wrong with eating, there's nothing wrong with playing, with having pleasure. There is nothing wrong. The thing is that we should all remain balanced within that. Don't
Yeah.
sleep too much. Don't enough sleep, enough play, enough food, enough everything, and in that way we can get easily detached from the things that bring actual suffering to us.
Yes.
Because and this guy, he takes everything to the extreme, because
Mm.
he's extremely psychopath.
Yes.
So he takes everything to the extreme, and that's very harmful, and that's a belief he installs in everybody,
Yes.
which is what we have been sharing for the last past hour.
Yeah.
He takes everything to the limit. He exploits everything. He wants to take the most juice out of everything.
Yeah. You're right. And
And,
for
and
everyone but him. And the other characteristic of a narcissist and a psychopath is that there's a double standard. So disciples are expected to, sleep on the raw cement floor covered in drywall dust in an indoor location for 3 weeks straight without eating a proper diet, without going outside, without talking to the opposite gender, without listening to the music they choose, without doing anything they like. Disciples of him are expected to completely sacrifice themselves,
yeah,
sacrifice any pleasure they ever had in life, give up all their money to him, and work for him for free, while he stays in a 5-star luxury resort in Ecuador with a serving team who dote on his every need, providing him with whatever food he asks for, whatever sexual services he asks for,
yeah,
while he exploits and abuses other people. And I think this is the biggest red flag that the world should see, to know that he is a con artist, he's a scam,
yeah,
he's a fraud. It's that he does not practice what he preaches. He claims that
at all.
celibacy is the only way for seekers to achieve enlightenment. Meanwhile, he's had how many sexual partners and exploited how many people? He's like the Epstein or the Harvey Weinstein of the guru community. He is the worst of the worst. And thank you, Federico, for joining me today and sharing your experience, because I think it's a really valuable one. And I'm glad you woke up, and I'm glad that you're
Yeah, yeah.
standing.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah, because you made the first step. Actually,
Yeah,
after Arti Rao and Lenin, I think you made the next step.
yeah,
And something else I like to add is that for people that hasn't been there, it might be harder to get out
mm,
because the amplitude of his incoherence, it's so massive. It's light and dark.
mm,
He shows light, but he is the darkest thing you can imagine. And and if you don't have like evidence, or if you are not open to this kind of information we are sharing right now, these kind of channels,
mm.
it's going to be really hard to get out,
Yeah,
because to understand, because he passes to be from an avatar to a worse demon. I mean, we have experienced that in ourselves,
yeah,
believing somebody, a being that we thought was God. Now it's the reality is that it's a demon, and that difference is so big that it makes it very hard for people that doesn't have first-hand experience, and it's not open to listen to first-hand experience to get out.
yeah,
So I really hope we help a lot of people with these videos. I know we are, I know you are. So, and I think it's really worth the effort. You posted something yesterday that basically says that the silence is worse than, sorry, your silence is worse than speaking out and telling the truth. And that's great. And everybody should please come forward. You
yes.
will feel better. You
It's
will feel
true.
better. It will help you heal.
It's true. Yeah, that as long as somebody is still holding on to their pain and suffering and the bad experience they had from him because they're afraid, or they want to, sweep it under the carpet and forget about it, it's always going to hold a power over them. It's like you only feel liberated from the dog collar when you rip it off and throw it in the trash or burn it
Yeah.
or do something, get rid of it. You're only going to feel better about the way you were exploited and abused and cheated by that cheat who calls himself Nithyananda. You'll only feel better when you come forward and speak. It's a really cathartic thing. So
Yeah.
thank you for mentioning that, Federico, too. I think that more and more people are going to start coming out and
Yeah.
describing what they've gone through, because you can never hide the truth. The truth will always come out at some point. And I think that we're proof that he can't hurt us. He might claim that he has
Mm.
this black magic siddhi to kill people, but damn it, if he did, we'd be dead. So he's
He's very weak.
very
He's
weak.
very weak.
Yep.
He's not what we once believed him to be. He
So,
has none of those qualities.
and
He's
even
weak.
calling him a demon might be overestimating. I think he has demon tendencies. He wants to be a demon, but
Yeah.
he's too cheap. He's too insignificant. He's too
Suchi.
fiddly.
He doesn't even
You know,
qualify.
he's not. He's no great Ravana. You know,
uh,
he's just a cheap wannabe Ravana, and
yeah. Yeah.
it's perfect that a lot of the ex-disciples are calling him Poops because he's easy to deal with. We'll just flush him down the toilet. He'll be behind bars soon enough, as soon as the Indian judiciary catches him. And I'm pretty sure, no country, even a corrupt country, I've heard a rumor that he might have tried to buy an island in Venezuela. So Venezuela is going through a lot of problems right now, but even a country um, even a country going through as much turmoil as Venezuela doesn't want the added dark mark against them of harboring a fugitive who is a multiple rapist, who is a racketeer, who's a fraud. Even Venezuela wouldn't want somebody like him. It's like he's country hopping, trying to find the most corrupt government he can find, but I still
Yeah.
have faith in humanity that nobody is
Yeah.
that corrupt that they'll keep him forever. And so eventually, I really feel there's no other hope for him but that karma is going to catch up. All the people he's harmed are going to be vindicated. His karma will get him, and he won't be able to continue his racket much longer. And I think the faster his other victims start speaking up, the faster that process is going to be brought to completion.
Yeah.
So
Nithyananda, please wake up from your fraud.
That's
That's all
exactly.
we ask. Wake up, Nithyananda.
Wake up. Exactly. You're right. You're right. So I guess that. Thank you, Federico. It's been a pleasure talking.
Thank you. Yeah, it was awesome. Keep the platform open.
I sure
More
will.
people, I'm sure, will come and share their experiences. Everything is valuable.
Yes.
And yeah, let's live in a better world, right?
Absolutely.
And enjoy life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. It's been an honor and
Thank you so much.
my pleasure. Thank you for those of you who tuned in. Stay tuned for the next video. And as soon as those English subtitles, actually even before the English subtitles are finished, I'll put a link to all of Federico's other videos in the video description. And if you've got any questions for me or for him, you're welcome to leave them as a comment below and we'll answer to the best of our ability. See you next time. Bye.